They told you it wouldn't last. The hype, the headlines, the viral clips, all of it was supposed to fade the moment Shedeur Sanders stepped into the NFL. The critics promised the clicks would dry up, that the energy around Colorado football was nothing more than a temporary fever dream cooked up by Coach Prime and fueled by social media. They said the NFL was a different beast, a place where gimmicks die, where marketing mirages melt under the pressure of real lights, real defenses, and real expectations. But then, Friday night happened. On what should have been just another August preseason game, a window most fans barely notice, a broadcast usually filled with backups in bubble wrap and rookies fighting for roster spots, something unusual took place. Shedeur Sanders walked onto the field for his very first NFL appearance. And the country followed. Over 2.2 million people tuned in on NFL Network. Let that number sink in for a second. That's not normal. That's not background noise from football-starved fans who just wanted something on TV. That was the most watched preseason game on NFL Network in an entire decade. Think about the weight of that. In a league where ratings are dissected like game film, where relevance is measured in Nielsen decimals and advertising slots, Sanders didn't just play a game, he pulled an audience. Millions showed up to watch a rookie quarterback in the preseason, on cable. Not Fox, not NBC, not ESPN, cable. That doesn't happen by accident. And here's the part that should scare his critics the most. The viewers didn't just tune in, they stayed. Because this wasn't hype without substance. The stat line said calm, the body language said confident. The command in the huddle, the way he carried himself, the flashes of decisiveness, all of it told a story. This wasn't just Coach Prime's son cashing in on name recognition. This was a quarterback who looked ready for the moment. And whether you love him, hate him, or just can't look away, that's when the conversation changed. The narrative shifted from, is Shedeur Sanders worth the hype, to what happens if the hype is real? And that's where the story gets bigger than football, because Shedeur isn't just another rookie chasing a roster spot, he's a cultural moment. The son of an icon, carrying a famous last name, stepping into a position the NFL has historically judged differently when played by black quarterbacks. Every snap, every decision, every headline, it's all magnified, and now it's all drawing millions. But the real shock isn't just that he attracted those eyeballs, it's what those eyeballs mean. In today's NFL, attention is currency. Moving the needle matters just as much as moving the chains. Players aren't just athletes anymore, they're brands, media companies, and business models. And Shedeur Sanders has already proven, before even starting a regular season game, that he can command the kind of attention that networks, sponsors, and entire franchises build around. So when the skeptics laugh, when they call it overblown or dismiss it as just a preseason spike, they're missing the bigger point. This wasn't a random August crowd looking for football. This was a test, a signal, proof that the Sanders name bends the conversation wherever it goes. And that raises the question no one can ignore anymore. If a preseason debut can pull 2.2 million viewers on cable, what happens when the games actually count? The critics thought people would watch out of curiosity and then switch the channel. They figured the numbers were inflated by Prime hype fans tuning in just to see if Coach Prime's son could survive his first NFL snap. But what happened next silenced that argument. Because people didn't just show up, they stayed. Think about that. A preseason game in August, with a rookie quarterback making his debut, held the attention of millions for 4 quarters. That doesn't happen if the performance is sloppy. That doesn't happen if the moment feels too big. That doesn't happen if the player looks overwhelmed. And Shedeur Sanders? He looked like none of those things. The stat sheet tells part of the story. 14 completions on 23 attempts, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns plus 19 rushing yards. Solid numbers, but not jaw-dropping. The kind of stat line that says efficient rather than explosive. But here's the secret. Efficiency is exactly why people stayed. Because this wasn't a game of highlight reels or miracle throws, it was a game of poise. From the first drive, you could see the difference. His footwork was sharp, his reads were deliberate. He wasn't panicking in the pocket, he wasn't forcing hero plays, he wasn't trying to live up to the hype in one snap. He played with a calmness rare for a rookie quarterback in his very first NFL appearance. And that calmness is what hooks people in a different way than Flash does. Viewers came expecting chaos, either the chaos of an overwhelmed rookie or the chaos of a viral highlight. Instead, they got something far more intriguing: control. And control, especially at quarterback, makes you lean in. You could see it in the timing. As the game went on, his passes came out quicker, his confidence grew, and the offense started clicking. The short game wasn't timid, it was purposeful. The mid-level throws weren't hesitant, they were decisive. Even the incompletions carried a sense of intent. He wasn't just chucking the ball, he was processing, he was commanding. And that body language, it mattered. When you saw him in the huddle, there was no wide-eyed rookie panic. He looked like he belonged. When you saw him at the line of scrimmage, he wasn't rushing or fumbling signals. He was patient, steady, in control. When he completed passes, there was no over-the-top celebration, just a quiet confidence that said, "I've been here before, and I'll be here again." That's why the millions stayed, because they realized in real time that this wasn't just hype anymore. The kid could actually play. Now, no one's crowning him a star based on one preseason game. That's not how the NFL works, but that's also not the point. The point is that in a league where first impressions can define a narrative, Shedeur Sanders made his debut feel like more than a debut. He made it feel like the start of something bigger. And viewers felt it. They tuned in for the spectacle. They stayed for the substance. They realized they weren't just watching Deion Sanders' son cash in on attention, they were watching a quarterback who seemed ready for the conversation he's been pushed into since high school. It's rare. Most rookies crack under that kind of spotlight. Most rookies get eaten alive by the pressure. But Shedeur? He made it look like just another day at work. And that's what shocked everyone. Because hype alone doesn't keep 2.2 million people glued to a preseason game, presence does. And Shedeur Sanders proved in just one night that he doesn't just bring attention, he holds it. To understand why Shedeur Sanders is different, you can't just look at the stat line. You have to look at the story. Because Shedeur isn't just another rookie quarterback trying to prove himself in the NFL. He's the son of one of the most recognizable figures in sports history, Deion Coach Prime Sanders. And that single fact changes everything. From the moment he picked up a football, Shedeur's life has been defined by expectations. Imagine growing up with a father who isn't just famous, but iconic, a Hall of Famer, a two-sport legend, a man who redefined swagger in athletics. Every time Shedeur threw a pass in high school, it wasn't just about whether it was complete or incomplete. It was about living up to the Sanders name. And that shadow? It never really goes away. But here's where it gets complicated. Being Deion Sanders' son opens doors, but it also paints a target on your back. Every success gets credited to privilege. Every failure gets magnified. And in the NFL, the most scrutinized position in all of sports is quarterback, especially for black quarterbacks. That history can't be ignored. The league has a long and complicated track record with black QBs. They've been judged more harshly, doubted for longer, and often forced to prove themselves twice as much before being respected. It's a reality that stretches from Doug Williams in the 1980s to Lamar Jackson today. For Shedeur, stepping into that position means he isn't just battling defensive schemes, he's battling a narrative baked into decades of skepticism. And that's what makes his calm, composed debut matter even more, because for millions of viewers, this wasn't just about whether he could throw a touchdown. It was about whether he could carry the weight of history, expectation, and his own last name and not flinch. But Shedeur's story doesn't stop with family or history. He's also been shaped by mentorship. One of the most influential figures in his development has been none other than Tom Brady. Yes, the greatest quarterback of all time, the man with 7 Super Bowl rings took time to guide Shedeur, giving him advice on preparation, mindset, and leadership. You can see it in the way he plays. The patience in the pocket, the emphasis on timing, the refusal to chase hero ball. These are Brady-like habits, showing a maturity beyond his years. And then there's the Coach Prime effect. Deion Sanders didn't just coach his son at Jackson State in Colorado, he built an entire media ecosystem around him. Behind-the-scenes content. Social media highlights, documentaries, they didn't just show Shedeur the quarterback, they showed Shedeur the person. Calm, respectful, composed with referees, a leader with teammates. Those moments weren't fluff. They were brand building, they were storytelling. They turned a college quarterback into a national presence before he ever set foot in the NFL. Which leads us to the truth. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a player, he's a top. But then came the jarring reality check. During a game filled with punishing hits, Shedeur was visibly shaken up. Cameras caught him grimacing, struggling to shake off the pain, and at one point, even walking gingerly to the sideline. For fans, it was an unsettling sight. For the program, it was a potential catastrophe. In the world of sports, injuries are inevitable, but context matters. This wasn't just any quarterback. This was the son of Deion Sanders, the central figure of Colorado's rebuild, and the player who had single-handedly carried the team through moments that looked hopeless. Losing him wasn't just about one player being out, it was about the identity of the team being stripped away. The tension built not only on the field, but also on social media. Instantly, the highlight reels and celebrations were replaced with speculation. Fans tweeted endlessly, analysts debated on national television, and rival fan bases whispered about whether Colorado's dream season was about to crumble. The air of uncertainty was suffocating. Adding another layer to this drama was the fact that Shedeur's injury coincided with Colorado's toughest stretch of games. The team wasn't just fighting opponents on the field, they were fighting the narrative that without Shedeur, Colorado was vulnerable. Every play he missed became symbolic. Every update from the trainers dissected like a stock market report. Would he be out for weeks? Would he risk playing through the pain? Or was this the moment that proved Colorado had put too much weight on one player's shoulders? What made the situation even more fascinating was how Shedeur himself handled it. Instead of shrinking under the spotlight, he doubled down on his resilience. Reports emerged about him spending extra hours in rehab, working with trainers, and even studying game film when he couldn't practice fully. Teammates spoke about how he continued to lead from the sidelines, offering advice, encouragement, and a steady presence when the locker room needed it most. Coach Deion Sanders also added his own twist to the saga. True to his style, he kept details vague, often speaking in riddles during press conferences. Was Shedeur going to play? Was he at 70%, 80%, or closer to 100%? Nobody knew. And in that uncertainty, the legend of Shedeur Sanders only grew. Fans clung to every word, desperate for good news, while the mystery fueled media coverage and heightened anticipation for his eventual return. When Shedeur finally stepped back onto the field, the reaction was nothing short of electric. It wasn't just about his performance, it was about what he represented. Seeing him throw, run, and command the offense again reminded everyone why he was special. The scare had shown just how fragile success could be, but it also amplified the appreciation for what Colorado had with him under center. In retrospect, the injury scare became more than a setback, it became a defining chapter. It tested Shedeur's resilience, revealed the team's reliance on him, and exposed the raw emotions of fans who had tied their hopes to his arm. In a way, it humanized him. He wasn't invincible, but he was willing to fight through pain, doubt, and adversity. That's what transformed him from just another talented quarterback into a figure fans could rally behind. The scare reminded everyone that greatness isn't just about highlight plays, it's about surviving the low points. For Shedeur Sanders, this was his low point. And the way he navigated it only solidified his place in the larger story of Colorado's wild, unpredictable, and unforgettable season. One of the most fascinating aspects of Shedeur Sanders' journey is not just how he burst onto the national scene, but how he managed to sustain attention in a media landscape that often moves on in the blink of an eye. Sports fans are notorious for chasing the next big highlight, the next record-breaking stat, or the newest rising star. Yet, months after his breakout moments, Shedeur still commands headlines, social media clips, and primetime conversations. The question is, how has he kept people watching? To understand this, we have to recognize the difference between flash-in-the-pan athletes and sustained icons. Plenty of players deliver a few electric performances only to fade away once defenses adjust, injuries creep in, or the spotlight shifts to someone else. Shedeur, however, has combined on-field excellence, personality-driven branding, and consistent storytelling to remain relevant. It's not just what he does with the ball in his hands, it's the full ecosystem around him. First, let's talk about the performance factor. At the end of the day, sustained attention has to start with sustained production. Shedeur didn't just ride one big game, he stacked highlight after highlight, week after week. Whether it was late-game drives, pinpoint accuracy under pressure, or jaw-dropping stat lines, he gave fans a reason to tune in again. People weren't just waiting to see if he would succeed, they were waiting to see what new chapter he would add to his story. Every week felt like an episode in a long-running sports drama, and that serialized storytelling kept fans locked in. But performance alone isn't enough. The second factor is character and personality. Fans gravitate toward athletes who give them something beyond numbers. With Shedeur, the combination of swagger, confidence, and vulnerability created a powerful mix. His infamous watch flex gesture became a cultural moment, sparking debates, memes, and endless media commentary. It wasn't just about showing off, it was a signal of self-belief. And whether you loved it or hated it, you had an opinion. That's the key. Relevance thrives on conversation, and Shedeur consistently gave people something to talk about. The third factor is the narrative hook. Shedeur isn't just any quarterback, he's the son of Deion Sanders, one of the most charismatic and successful athletes of all time. This creates a unique storyline, a young star carving his own legacy while walking in the shadow of a legendary father. Audiences are fascinated by these generational dynamics. Will he live up to the Sanders name? Will he surpass it? Is the spotlight a blessing or a burden? These are questions that keep fans emotionally invested because the story goes beyond stats. It's about family, legacy, and identity. Fourth, there's the media strategy. The Sanders family has mastered the art of sustaining attention through controlled content, behind-the-scenes storytelling, and a constant stream of updates. In today's sports world, you don't just wait for ESPN highlights, you follow Instagram stories, YouTube documentaries, and viral TikTok clips. Shedeur is everywhere. Not just on game day, but in the days between. That omnipresence means fans never truly get a break from his story, and in turn, he never slips from their minds. Finally, there's the element of suspense. Great stories thrive on tension, and Shedeur's career is packed with it. Will he stay healthy? Can he keep dominating as competition stiffens? Will he take his talents to the NFL and succeed at the highest level? These unanswered questions create a sense of anticipation, keeping fans hooked because they want to see how the story unfolds. Every game feels like a glimpse into the future, and people don't want to miss a single clue. In short, Shedeur Sanders has sustained attention through a perfect storm. Consistent excellence, cultural personality, generational storytelling, media control, and ongoing suspense. In an era where attention is fleeting, he's figured out the formula to make it last. And that's why, long after many breakout stars fade, Shedeur's spotlight still shines bright. When we look at Shedeur Sanders' story so far, it's easy to get caught up in the flash, the record-breaking stats, the sold-out stadiums, the viral highlights that dominate social media, and the celebrity aura that follows him everywhere. But if you step back, what we've been watching is much more than just one quarterback's rise to fame. It's a glimpse into how the entire landscape of college football and even sports culture as a whole is shifting before our eyes. Shedeur's journey isn't just about football, it's about the merging of sports, media, business, and entertainment into one unified experience. In the past, a college athlete's reputation lived and died by Saturday performances. You either showed up on the field or you faded away. But now? Your brand, your story, and your influence matter just as much, sometimes even more than your stats. And Shedeur Sanders has mastered that balance better than anyone in the game right now. Think about what we've covered. Fans didn't just stay tuned because he could throw touchdowns, they stayed because of the story. They stayed because Shedeur was part of something larger. Deion Sanders' bold experiment at Colorado, a cultural movement that mixed swagger with grit, tradition with disruption. The on-field numbers gave fans a reason to notice, but the narrative gave them a reason to care, and that right there is the secret sauce to sustaining attention in today's world. The media landscape also played a huge role. With Deion and Shedeur controlling their own content streams, whether through YouTube, Instagram, or post-game interviews, they weren't just at the mercy of ESPN or traditional outlets. They became their own broadcasters, shaping the story in real time. Every clip, every press conference, every viral quote wasn't an accident. It was a calculated part of the larger picture, to make sure the Sanders name stayed front and center, no matter what the scoreboard said. Even the injury scare, which could have been a turning point that derailed the hype, became a storyline that deepened fan engagement. It wasn't just about whether Shedeur could play through the pain, it became a question of resilience, of toughness, of whether the Sanders brand was built for